Jump Up Supercast, the only podcast on the internet that cannot remember what day it is. I'm Will, and joining me this week, Brandon.
It's Groundhog's Day. It's the same day I've been living for the last, couple of days in a row.
Ills.
Pretty normal here.
Saf.
Like the phoenix, I rise from the ashes.
And Noah.
What year is it?
What year is it? After many years, Saf has finally returned to the Jump Up Supercast.
Yay!
Yeah.
He has defeated what was definitely COVID-19. And then he gave it to his prime minister.
In that exact order, yeah.
Yeah.
What a patriot.
But he's back. He's here.
Mm-hmm.
How's everyone's weeks been?
So good.
Fine.
Pretty good.
Great.
Thank
get
you.
to play Final Fantasy 7 early. It's fucking fantastic.
Oh,
That's
this
why
guy.
he's back. That's what he's been waiting for.
That's why. Yeah, why not? Why not? By the time you're hearing this, Final Fantasy VII is out. But when we're recording this, it's not. So I'm just going to talk about your experiences with the game so far, Savvy.
Okay. Yeah. So the game starts off the same way the demo starts off, and a lot of the reviews that you get from the demo is still similar. Like the visuals are still great. They still use the correct the older landmarks to great effects, and they have fucking fantastic music. A lot of the characters themselves have been amazingly redesigned, not just the Avalanche crew, but everyone. Aerith, the Rude, Reno, they're still fucking great. There's new characters there that are super fucking anime looking. And you can fucking tell that they're gonna have bigger roles than the NPCs. And there's also the fact that they are, even though they dress like fucking anime, their fashion sense is proper anime, they're deceptive. The art style is deceptively realistic looking. They look so realistic that you kind of forget that it's an anime game until you see them animated, and then you see the dialogue and the voices. It's like, oh wait, no, that sounds fucking anime. Which I don't know if it makes sense, but if you play it, you kind of recognize it quickly with some of the characters and some of the action that you see. The other part about this as well, which is great, is they have a lot of decent attention to detail. There's a notable visual moment in that game, which I found fascinating, is whenever you kill a monster, it kind of turns into green particles, which if you played Final Fantasy, you kind of, that sort of thing is kind of part of this existing lore of the live stream.
Sure.
And that feels as though I'm just sending them back to the live stream, which is a nice wee little visual touch. And it kind of speaks to the attention to detail that this game has already. There's also questions about their textures, which is kind of, some of it looks flat. There are other parts where it just takes a few seconds to load in. But aside from that, it's visually fucking fantastic.
I mean, do you think that's stuff that could be in a day one patch kind of deal, or?
Probably.
Because reviewers are the same things, which is why I was curious about it.
I mean, it seems like it. Probably would be the case. But what was weird is the copy that I got had a disc, which was dedicated for you to installing assets for you to play, and not use. And once you installed it, you just use the other disc to just kind of play the game with those assets. And you need 100 gigabytes of free space.
Yeah.
To do that, which is kind of crazy. So maybe there will be a patch. Who knows? I would totally expect one. I hope there is one at the very least. But yeah, that's the only problem that I have had with the visuals of the game. The characters themselves are actually fucking incredibly well developed. Square's done a fucking fantastic job of designing scenarios that explores these personalities that each and every one of them, your main party, has in an amazing depth that you've never seen in the original game. Even the minor characters, the new ones, they seem silly and fun from the get-go. I haven't played the game to completion yet, so I don't know whether or not the end result is a good or bad one, but so far they are fucking fun. and enjoy
Mhm.
joy to watch. And the older ones, the fucking legacy ones, like the Avalanche crew, you actually care about them. Like there's a mission later on, well, pretty early on in the game that is designed with the mind of like you spending more time with everyone from Avalanche except from the main party, and
Mhm.
and the adventure that you have with them is just super fucking great. Like they've done a good job of that, and I don't want to see them die. I genuinely do not want to see them die.
Sure.
What about the side content?
The side content is it's not that. The side content is decent. Like there's good high production quality in it. Like they've added a couple of interesting characters to the game itself. It's not that big, to be honest with you. Like there's only like a few. Like once you hit a slum area, there's like 3-4 missions that you do, and then you move on to the main story.
Mhm.
So even though there is side content, but it's not as much as you would expect in a normal JRPG.
Mhm.
But I guess this isn't really your typical JRPG either. Like it's based in Midgar. It's pretty fucking linear.
Yeah, well, because I mean, you said you're. I don't know if this is a spoiler, but you're. There are chapters in the game, right?
Mhm.
You're in double digits in terms of the number of chapters.
Yep.
What's the total playtime that you're at?
Okay, I did spend some time grinding. Like I spent a
Sure.
couple of days
Yeah, of
grinding.
course. This is SAF time, so
This is
Yeah.
SAF time. I'm so far like 56 hours.
okay. So a normal person probably 25 is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Probably 25.
And this is sort of like a more esoteric question,
Mhm.
but obviously when you first think of Final Fantasy 7 Remake, you just want to see all of Final Fantasy 7, right? Like is in modern fidelity, all this other stuff, right?
Yep.
Do you think playing it now, obviously with the nature of it being just Midgar, the releases being as they are, and the stuff being added that's been added, do you think that you would now go to someone and say, you can play Final Fantasy 7 Remake and have a great time, but it's not a wholesale replacement for FF7? This is you should still play the FF7 and you'll get something out of that is unique from this game.
Yeah. I would probably still recommend people only to get the complete story.
Uh-huh.
Like, if you want to get the complete story, if you want to get a decent JRPG experience, play FF7. Yeah. At the very least.
Wow.
But
Drop it down 50 points on the list.
Yeah.
but-
Because I think that's going to be the interesting thing with this whole deal. And it's like, in a decade when this is done or whatever, right? Like, and you look at Final Fantasy 7 Remake, it's like, well, does this at this point just feel like Final Fantasy 7 2 rather than like Final Fantasy 7 again, right?
Yeah.
Because
It's
of, like you said, all the stuff they've added.
yeah, it's Final Fantasy, but with more context. And the more context that they've added, like I was scared that they might ruin some things or change some things, like fucking George Lucas with Star Wars.
Well, there's still time.
But there's still
Yeah,
time
there's
to fuck shit up. But so far, the things that they've added quite a significant amount of context, and it helps change your perspective on some of the events in the game, and they've done a really, really good job of that. Like, the addition of Sephiroth, there's still time to fuck that up. I haven't completed it yet, but
Sure. He's
his
around.
He's around. His addition is pretty fucking minor. Like,
Uh-huh.
and he is used to a good effect. Like, I like
Okay.
what they've done, or how they've implemented Sephiroth into this.
All right.
Do you ever hear about Genesis?
No. This is a Neil's question. You do not fucking hear a thing about Genesis.
He's not
No,
around.
I mean, I said it, so yeah, it's a Neil's question.
That's true.
No.
All right. Well, thanks, Saf. That was interesting to hear about, obviously, right? Like, people might be listening to this as they're playing FF7, but obviously, unless they put an inhumane amount of time into the game, right? They're not going to be 56 hours in like you. So still a lot of
Absolutely
interest there. Now, besides that, of course, not a ton of video. Actually, I take that back. A lot of video games have been coming out as The Secret, right? In the last 3 weeks, we've had 10 different games all get above an 85 on Metacritic, right? which is pretty wild. Big for fantasy leagues if you were doing the fantasy drafts. Has anyone else been playing anything of note in these quarantine weeks?
A lot of Animal Crossing and recently Resident Evil 3, the remake.
How have you been finding Resident Evil 3, the remake?
Frustrating. No, it's okay. I'm not sure if I agree with some of the things that was said that it being extremely short so far, but I put an asterisk on that because I am playing on the hardcore mode.
Sure.
And I don't know if that's the cause of me dying so much, but I feel like they did drop the bomb with Nemesis a little bit. Because, yeah, like, in the original game, like, he would chase you around, he'd feel like an actual threat and things like that. But you could get away from him if you could get away from him, like, by going to other sections and actually outrunning him. But, like, in this game, it's locked in to, like, he's gonna chase you. Like, you cannot get away.
Yeah.
And he feels extreme, but in the sense that he doesn't feel like a giant threat, he feels extremely cheap. So you can go up ladders, like, leave him miles behind, then all of a sudden you turn around the corner of a building and he's right in front of you as if he never left. Like, literally teleports around the fucking map. Like, more so, like, in the Resident Evil 2 remake, the Tyrant, Mr. X, he teleported, but only when you were, like, you had completely gotten away from him, hidden, or... like, yeah, you had some time to recuperate and figure out where you need to go and things like that. Like, Nemesis is relentlessly after you, like, which feels like he should be, but not like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like with horror, there should actually be a cadence, right? There should be highs and lows, right, of when you're tense. And if it's just a constant, we're bearing down on you at all times, then it doesn't feel. It's like right.
Again, in the original game, it was like throughout the whole game, like whether you went to the police station, whether you went into the town, whether you went to the diner, whatever, is a constant, like, in the back of your head, is he going to find me, whatever? You never know.
I feel
but
like it was
here it's very
wasn't it? In the
it was randomized, yeah.
Yeah, you can just be walking around and he'll show up randomly on like different playthroughs, so you didn't know when he was coming.
Yeah, but in this one, it's like extremely segmented. Like, as soon as you encounter him the first time, then as soon as you go back to the city, he's going to chase you.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what, like, it's guaranteed. But once you get to, like, the other area, he won't. But once you come back to the city, he'll chase you again because something else happens. It's, like, very cutscene-y, like segment.
Very scripted, you mean?
Scripted, that's the word, yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, in this game, he doesn't, like, walk like he did in normal. Like, he could just jump.
No, he's very fast.
So, yeah, he jumps in front of you,
Yeah.
Do you think maybe part of the problem is, right, like, so Mr. X, right, in the original RE2, right, was a part of the game, but he was not as big a part of the identity of RE2 originally as, like, RE3, people know Nemesis first of anything from that game, right? And do you think the fact that they had Mr. X as he was in RE2, and they're like, well, clearly we need to escalate, right? Everyone knows Nemesis is supposed to be this looming threat, right? But we've already sort of done that with Mr. X, that they had to sort of maybe push it too far to try to escalate it from there?
Potentially, but again, they went to the point where it just feels extremely cheap. Like,
sure.
So with the dodge, especially when it comes where they expect you to be able to use the dodge mechanic like a fucking pro. So, but it's so inconsistent. Like, I've been struggling so much to learn this mechanic. I've been playing for so long. The thing is, like, when he's chasing you, there aren't that many sound cues or warnings that he's about to attack you. So you could be running, thinking you're getting away, then all of a sudden, bam, like he's hit you and you're going flying across the map.
Sure.
So it's like there's no way to indicate that he's about to jump and attack you. So the dodging mechanic is like absolutely fucking useless there. Sometimes if you get, like, mash it randomly when you hear one step or something, you might get lucky and dodge, but he also does some chain attacks which just stun lock you sometimes, and it's fucking stupid. And playing on hardcore, that's like one time, if he grabs you one time, you're fucking dead.
Yeah. No room for error. speaking of talking about the rumor, the Mr. X and all that other stuff, have you played any of the multiplayer, the Project Resistance stuff?
Yes, that is
How's
really
that?
fun, surprisingly. But if you try to play as the mastermind, you're going to have queue times up to like 20 minutes
Yeah,
just to get in the game.
the nature of 1 versus 4 is that
Hmm.
just less games for the one.
But it is really fun. I was playing yesterday with a few friends, and today I played. Well, not today. Yesterday I also tried to get the mastermind. They're both like pretty fun to play as.
You feel like it's well balanced between the two sides?
I feel like if you have like the survivors, if they're really coordinated and like have like in-game chat or whatever, and like communicate and stick together, there's very little the mastermind can do. Like they can get fucked over really bad by a real coordinated team. So I feel like there is some balancing that needs to be done there.
Sure. You're sort of relying upon human error at that point if you're the
Yes.
mastermind. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, because that's one of the things that, like, I thought it was weird that they didn't let reviewers test that before it was out. But, I mean, if it's fun, that's good to hear, right?
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of Resident Evil, right, we have a little bit of some rumor and innuendo to get to that's spooky rumor and innuendo this week. Because it relates to two pretty big horror franchises in video games. And the weird thing about, like, horror video game leaks and stuff, right, is they come from a completely different sphere than like a lot of normal video game stuff, because there are just horror sites that are dedicated to horror in general in all mediums, and so sometimes they're the place that RE7 got leaked through Rely on Horror, right, which is the place that is talking about RE8 now, which is interesting because no one covered it because no one was reading this website in the video game sphere. But we got some follow-ups we talked about some of this stuff a couple months back, right? But just small updates on RE8. So we mentioned before that this was going to be a first-person game. That is still going to be the case, right? But they now have a name that they're using for the play tests, and it might be the name for the thing, which is apparently Resident Evil Village. And if you think about the V and then the I and then the L and the L, you can make an 8, because that's,
of course,
they may have thought of the name and then worked backwards.
Is that the only thing that matters now?
It might be. I mean,
You gotta make that.
they were so
Where's
pleased with
my
themselves
giraffe?
for Resident Evil.
How are they
My
gonna do
giraffe back.
something with an I and then an X?
I want
Oh,
the giraffe.
yeah, bring.
No one wants a giraffe. No one wants
Dick
that.
giraffe.
But the other thing that they said that was interesting specifically was that when they were talking to people is that RE 3.5 got name dropped a lot when they were talking about inspiration for this game. And if you don't remember what that is, essentially, remember when RE4 went through 3 different iterations before we ended up with the RE4 that we had, right?
Yeah, you had
And-
the one in the castle with like all the spooky like ghosts and apparitions and shit that was going on.
Mm-hmm. And that's
Yeah.
basically it seems to be where they're taking primary inspiration for RE8 according to this, right? Which is that you're in a village, as the name would imply, in some vaguely Eastern European country. It's snowy, right? And they said that the 2 new enemy types they showed off were werewolves and witches, right? Which is, like you said, way more of a supernatural bent, right? I mean, we sort of got there with RE7, right? Where like the different members of the family had magic powers, essentially, right? Like it was from bio experimentation, but like I'm just
Yeah.
summoning wasps and goop and mold, right? Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, Resident Evil is not all about zombies anymore, and I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Unfortunately, yeah.
to be fair, the game is called Biohazard, so it doesn't have to be about zombies. You know, I don't think, that's their thing. It's like it was never written in stone that it has to be zombies. It just,
I mean, it did, like, at least with the originals, it was like the zombies were the bread and butter of the series.
I mean,
Sure,
I'm sure they'll just make sure that they change the aesthetic enough to make it feel as though it belongs in the Resident Evil universe. Like,
Mhm.
I'm certain they're not gonna have some fucking woman on a broom with a black cat just flying across the
Mhm.
village or something.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
not certain of
yeah.
that.
Well, I mean,
Not certain
because they
of that.
mentioned that essentially the witch character is the Nemesis / Mr. X equivalent, right? Where it's like you can kill the other enemies, but when you kill her, she just sort of disappears, right? She turns into and then she comes back later, right?
Mhm.
Which would make sense if she's like the boss of the area or whatever, right? And then a few other things they mentioned was one, If you did not like Chris's face at the end of RE7, good news. Apparently, Chris has a new face.
Again,
God.
Jesus Christ.
We're gonna keep redrawing Chris until we finally settle on something.
I mean, they
His
had
original was fine.
well, they've had so many Chris's, and then it was like they stuck with one. They were like, "This is Chris," right? They even when they redid the Resident Evil 1 remake and they did the HD version, they changed Chris to look like Chris, the Chris from 4, 5, and 6, and Revelations and all that shit. They changed him in that to even look like that Chris. But all of a sudden, 7, he was just a completely different person.
Yes, and then when he's in pictures in Remake 2 and 3, he looks different there than he did in RE7. So
yeah, how?
He might be the most redesigned main character in video games.
At least Jill has some sort of consistency.
Wasn't she blonde in one fucking game? She was blonde in fucking 5.
There was a reason for that.
but now RE1 Jill and now RE3 Remake Jill, you can see that they're the same person, right? And that they have the same haircut.
Thank God they never changed Wesker.
Yeah, Wesker, you got
Can't mess with perfection.
Leon's pretty much always looked the same too. He's got the bowl cut.
Yeah, Jonathan Taylor Thomas vibes off of him.
It's actually the scariest thing about Leon's games.
But then besides all that, the one thing they said that was interesting was that the original plans was for RE to continue to be a yearly franchise. So this was going to be Q1 2021, hence why there's doing active playtesting right now. But with coronavirus, obviously, that's now more up in the air, right? Depending on how long all this goes. Do we think that there's a potential for RE fatigue? If this is the plan now, is every year we're going to do Resident Evil as long as we
When a
can?
bad one comes out.
I have a feeling there's going to be some RE fatigue for sure.
I'm not asking for one every year. Just we already have enough bad Resident Evil games. They would probably do a numbered series, then a spin-off, then a numbered series, then a spin-off, or a remake, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But there's been enough bad Resident Evil games, and I don't want to have the franchise look even worse than it already kind of does sometimes, So
Sure.
I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly good, right? Recently.
Well, if you look at the numbered series, it's mostly good, but a lot of the spin-offs, they're very hit or miss.
Yeah, all the multiplayer ones, you have all the light gun ones. RE's had a lot of different forms over the years,
Yeah.
And so I wonder if, because Capcom has sort of taken the approach, seemingly, right? We're like Monster Hunter World, right? We're going to go big scale, whatever, right? And then RE2, same thing. And RE3 slightly less so, but that wasn't in-house at Capcom actually, right? That was a different studio that worked on RE3. But it'll be interesting to see if you can both be like, hey, we're gonna have these games with super great graphical fidelity and all this other stuff, and also we're gonna do these every year. It feels like those things are gonna conflict, right? Eventually you're gonna need to throw out a Revelations style game, right? Where Revelations was a smaller team, they were experimenting some, right?
Actually a pretty decent game though, so that's an example of them doing a good spin-off.
I was saying that's in my brain the most hopeful scenario,
Yeah.
Rather than.
Can only hope the next multiplayer Resident Evil is the Outbreak port or remake.
God, you're obsessed with that game.
I love it so much.
That's all he does. He goes to bed dreaming about that game.
And then the other rumor, once again, one make very clear, right? This stuff, it could turn out to not be true, but it's interesting to talk about anyways. And what else is going on, But the other rumor that we have is about Silent Hill, a game that I think, was it all of your guys' first Silent Hill on the Game Club? Silent Hill 2?
No,
not for Noah, but for me and Ills, I think it was.
Okay, so, but still, at least two people here relatively new to the franchise. But Silent Hill, obviously, a Konami game. Konami's semi-famous now for not doing a lot with their IPs by themselves. Yeah, but there is this one has been said by several different people. Now that essentially Sony has been in contact with Konami about licensing their IP to have a Silent Hill game for PS5.
That'd be nice.
And this is sort of a continuation of the same approach that they did with Street Fighter V, for example, right? Capcom wasn't going to be actively developing Street Fighter V. Sony said, you can have some of our people, and also you can get some funding from us, and you'll be exclusive, right? So seemingly that'll be the same thing here. The thing that's of note that's interesting is that Sony actually has someone in-house that is the original director of Silent Hill, which is Kichiro Toyama, right? He did Silent Hill 1, and more recently he's worked at Sony Japan Studio. He was the director for Gravity Rush 1 and 2, which are both cool games.
Yeah.
And that the rumor says that he'll be working on it as director, and that the original artist for Silent Hill 2 and 3, so the guy that made Pyramid Head, made the nurses, all the stuff that's obviously in those games, will be coming back.
Map?
He did not make the map. It was not. I believe he was not there. And the composer for the first 4 Silent Hill games, right, would all be returning. So it would be a genuine.
That team is very promising.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Rather than the Silent Hills thing of we're going to do this whole new weird thing with Silent Hill with Kojima and Del Toro, right? This is very much like we're going to bring back Silent Hill as you hopefully remember it, right?
Yeah.
How do you feel about the potential of A, Sony making decisions like this, right, and B, specifically Silent Hill in this case?
I think it's pretty smart.
Yeah. I mean, I just got from playing Final Fantasy 7, and now I believe her in anything. As long as they have like the original creators, I believe they can make it work.
Sure.
It's giving me so much confidence.
Yeah, because Silent Hill is an interesting series, right? Because Silent Hill, the first 3, 4, depending on who you ask, and then other here and there, right? People like, but there's been a lot of bad Silent Hill games after sort of the PS2 era came to a close, right?
Yeah.
I think people like, I played Shattered Memories and the way I liked that game, but like, I think it's interesting that sort of there is an awareness from Sony on like, hey, let's get the people from when it was good, right? Let's just be aware we have one of these guys clearly in the office. Why are we not doing anything with him, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing is that, I mean, Japan as a country, development wise, has been in a weird place since HE development started, right? And as a market, it's sort of dried up some, right? And games can still do really well, right? And it's not like Japan to stop buying video games, but like Nintendo said a couple of years back, right, that part of the thing they wanted with the Switch being successful was they wanted to use it to raise the whole tide of Japan, basically, right? Like, which is why you see them partnering with Platinum all the time, why like Fire Emblem was mostly developed by Koei Tecmo secretly, right? Like with Intelligent Systems sort of being overhead. And I think it'd be interesting to see Sony sort of take that same approach, right? Where like Silent Hill is a very Japanese franchise, right? Like extremely so. This company that used to be obviously one of the big Japanese players has just stopped. And they're sort of saying, if they sort of say, hey, if you're not going to do it, we will. I'm super down with that. That's really interesting.
I think it's just Sony just kind of like I feel so Sony's just found when they did that original press conference when they announced Shenmue 3 and they announced Final Fantasy 7 Remake for the first time and they got that reaction. I feel still like something clicked with Sony and they're like, you know what, maybe we should bring back some of the older franchises that people loved that they haven't seen again. Yeah. And I think they found Silent Hills to be one of those games where people had some hype over it. People were upset when it went. So why not just take advantage of that and just kind of bring it back for them.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, PT was only on PS4, right? That was like a shadow drop of PSX. So there was already that association with PlayStation, right? So yeah, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, in Silent Hill originally started on PlayStation as well.
Yeah.
Before becoming multi-platform later on.
Mm-hmm. But that was not the only thing, that we'll see, right, in the coming months whether or not that happens and even further on, right? Because I get the feeling no one's going to probably want to be announcing much in the coming months because there's just so much uncertainty on when people are going to be working on games again. But Sony did announce something. That's the hard and fast thing. It's a physical object you can hold in your hands, and that is the PS5 controller was just dropped on their Twitter account randomly. You might say the DualShock 5. You'd be a fool. We're in the new era, baby. Dual Sense, which what makes it a dual sense? Well, that's a great question that I'm still slightly unsure about. But the things that it does have, before we get to sort of the big thing, which is a form factor change, is the controller has haptic feedback now in the actual hands itself, right?
What does that mean?
Haptic feedback is essentially, at the risk of oversimplifying, it's more targeted rumble, right? So instead of just the entire controller vibrating, different parts will vibrate at different frequencies, and you can use it to simulate stuff, right?
So like HD Rumble.
HD Rumble is haptic feedback, but Nintendo gave it a fancy word.
Yeah.
It's essentially the launch. And it's funny because
kind of Rumble. I like that.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Secretly, all the controllers have haptic feedback, and all of them have had different ways to describe the same thing.
Yeah, the Xbox One does. Xbox Series X controller has it as well.
Yeah, and also like the Series X, they have they have force feedback basically on the triggers, right? Which essentially means that they can use rumble for the idea is for it to like to make sometimes it to be easier or harder to squeeze the trigger, right? So the example they give is like if you're pulling the trigger and you're shooting a gun, it'll pull easier than say you're pulling back a bow, right? Because a bow in the game there's supposed to be more tension, so you feel more tension on your hand, right?
That's cool.
Yeah, which is neat. The things that are not there, perhaps actually the nicest thing in general is that it's just a USB-C port. God bless. Come on.
Yes.
Still, it sucks that the Series X controller still uses batteries. To be honest, it's now fully.
Also
aligned.
has USB-C though. On
It does, so that is fair to it.
if you buy a battery pack or whatever,
You can charge it that way.
because it's. I mean, it's a thing, right? Where there's an argument to be had for both. You know,
Sure.
because I get when Microsoft explains their reasoning. You know, when Xbox says, "Listen, you use AA batteries again, but you can buy a battery pack." And you have that option because if you get a dud battery or your battery dies in your PlayStation controller, you got to buy a whole new controller. If you have a rechargeable battery pack with your Xbox controller, just take it out and get a new one, right? Just get a battery pack. It's going to be cheaper than the controller. You don't have to toss your controller out. But, then you have to buy the controller and the battery pack, which is a little more expensive. So it's a thing, right?
There's trade-offs.
There's trade-offs for both.
But the other thing is that still there, they still have the touchpad, even though it's differently shaped because the form factor has changed. That's perhaps the most obvious thing, right? Is if you look at the DualShock 1 through 4, they all generally have that same wider than it is tall shape, right? That is gone with the DualSense, which might be why they decided not to name it the DualShock 5. It puts it closer to Xbox, right? That's the obvious comparison point, right? And the Switch. Like now they all generally have the same form factor, though the sticks are still in the same spot. So if you prefer having the sticks lower down, you're in the clear. And the biggest thing that's potentially missing is the light bar, which was on the front of the PS4 controller. Is not there anymore. Now there's like weird. It looks like it's two-tone. This controller. It's not a looker. I would say it's a pretty weird.
It's very weird. I don't like. I feel like it would have looked better as just one color, but whatever.
I agree.
I like the look.
I thought,
and I also like the name better than DualShock. It makes more sense. Fucking DualShock, dumbass name.
I think the only thing that I find that I don't like about the controller is just the color scheme. Like if they change the color scheme, then I'm absolutely okay with the controller itself. The design itself is absolutely fine to me.
It looks like an Avenger.
It does look like they're time traveling suits. It does. But the only thing I don't like white, especially on my controllers, because I had a white Game Boy Advance. Because white's sleek, right? You want it's just a sleek color.
Nice.
But I've got the white Game Boy Advance, and coming from experience, man, when you play the fuck out of that thing, your hands get sweaty, and white stains easier than any other color.
It does.
Yeah.
All of my Wii remotes are stained from the one day my little cousins came over and just dipped their hands in Kool-Aid, then grabbed my Wii remote. Right? Like it's just it's doomed forever.
Don't eat too many Cheetos.
That's true.
You ask a gamer not to eat so many Cheetos?
Yeah.
You might as well ask me to just die right now.
Die right now.
Fine, I will if I'm going to give up Cheetos.
Problem solved.
There we go.
So I guess they said they'll explain this later. The share button is now the create button. So, I don't know what that entails. They said, I imagine that'll come when they show off the operating system, right? Whatever that entails. But the thing that's missing is the light bar in the front, right? Which I had annoyances with, but the PSVR uses it a ton. Actually, that's how the console senses where you are, and where your controller is relative to your headset, right? And with that gone now, even though they confirmed the PSVR will be backwards compatible, those games will be. I'm very curious to see what the fix is, or if it will just be like, hey, Astrobot doesn't work, right? Some PSVR games work, but some won't with PS5. But because I don't think they're giving up on VR, so I'll be.
It's got the light underneath. It still has a light on it, but it's like underneath the stupid touchpad thing.
Yes, now it shines up directly at you, but like you can't point that at your TV, right? Like you can't point that at your camera, right? Wherever that's set up. So it's weird.
I don't like that touchpad. What is the point?
Nobody knows.
They just like the touchpad.
It's so dumb. There's
literally half the games I played used it as just a menu button.
Yeah.
That's the majority. Button.
Yeah.
I mean, that's generally the secret with all controller updates at this point, right? Is like there'll be mostly first-party games that will use the new features, and everyone else will sort of just use it vaguely, right? Like HD Rumble does get used in Switch games, but like mostly just as Rumble that's slightly fancier, right?
Yeah, but HD Rumble doesn't take up like 30% of your controllers.
It does not.
Yeah. They probably could have made it look, I don't know, just closer to the original shape. I mean, I like the shape actually better because I prefer the Xbox controller shape, anyways.
Yeah.
I will say you're a Microsoft fan.
I just like the Xbox controller. Hey, the Switch has basically the same fucking controller, and I love that broken.
Yeah, they're all slowly coalescing together over time.
I love offset analog sticks. Honestly, I just feel like it feels better to me. I don't like them right next to each other. But that's everybody has their preferences. But
sure,
maybe they'll come out with a third-party controller that has the sticks in the opposite sides.
I think Sony has designed a controller to make it the fucking analogs feel more comfortable. Like if they're a lot less wide, it will be more comfortable to play with the analogs down below rather than just one. Like one above and one below.
I mean, once again, controller things always use a preference, right? There's no like clear definitive one way. But I do think they're sort of out of stuff, right? is sort of my other takeaway was like, so they can't announce games right now because I mean, Last of Us, like we mentioned last week, is getting delayed, and who knows what their holiday lineups will look like, right? Like Halo Infinite might not make launch because who knows. So you're probably hesitant to show that off. So like the hardware is the stuff you can show, the specs is the stuff you can show, but we've seen all that now, right? The only thing we haven't seen is I guess the PS5 itself, which do we think it's going to be two-tone like this is?
Oh God, please don't. I don't. Please no.
I don't care how consoles look.
In general.
Ugly.
Well,
I don't care. If it plays the games, I'm fine.
You quickly get used to things that are different.
I mean, a lot of people will get used to it, I'm sure. But I would rather they actually change the color scheme to be a little more, I don't know, looks a little more aesthetically pleasing than it actually is.
Yeah. Also the OS as well. They need to show that off.
Yeah. That is, I'll mention it until I'm blue in the face, but yeah. But one day, we're going to get to see what it looks like.
I want to know what the Series X OS looks like. Please be better.
Yeah, true. Please.
Although I like the way they've updated the Xbox OS recently, and I like it better. Just like one screen now.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking of that, right? Speaking of Microsoft in general, there was an Inside Xbox this week. There was not a lot of news.
It was very boring. I tried watching it, and I was like, no.
They went with like developer videos rather than the traditional stage show, right? Because obviously you can't have people in the same room. But the one thing that I think is interesting is part of a trend now is that game Grounded that Obsidian announced back at XO 19 or whatever it was, is entering early access / beta in July, which makes it now the third game in a row that Microsoft is putting out that on Game Pass is essentially the way to get these betas a month or so before the actual game comes out, right? They did it with Bleeding Edge, they're doing it right now with Minecraft Dungeons, and now with Grounded. And I think one, we mentioned before, I think, years ago on this podcast, I love betas. I think beta is just such a nice thing. But it is very funny, the point of a beta on a service where everything's already, you're paying for, right? Like, betas typically are a try before you buy kind of vibe to it as a consumer, right? Obviously, in developers, it's very useful for just testing purposes. But I wonder, I don't think that, like, Halo Infinite, for example, will be getting a beta because it's going to be launching with a new console as of right now. But do you think that this will become the standard for sort of for a lot of other places moving forward? It's just, if you're on our service, you're already in, you're getting this game for free, why not have a beta, right? Like, it's not like you're unselling people on this game because they've already technically paid for it, you know?
True.
Yeah.
I mean, multiplayer, I feel like it's a very good idea to do.
Yeah.
And all the
100%.
games that you mentioned are all very heavy multiplayer games.
Sure.
So I think it's a good thing to do. I think they'll probably continue to do it. And they've done it. They've done it before with some other games. They've had the Xbox game preview or whatever it was called. Where
That, I feel like PUBG, which is pretty wild.
PUBG, yeah. They did it for like a what's the alien hominid guys?
The Behemoth.
Behemoth. They did it with one of their games too. I can't even remember
Yeah.
what that game was called either. It was a strategy game. But they do it with a lot of games now. And what's that game too? We Happy Few. They did it with that too. So yeah.
Oh.
I think it's a cool thing. I like it.
And then one other thing about that game, they said if you're scared of spiders, there's a mode where you cut out the spiders. That's
Oh my goodness.
because there's again, it's Honey I Shrunk the Kids, right? So really big spiders is some people's worst nightmare. Sorry if you're afraid of ants, you're screwed. You can't cut those out though.
Yeah. Wow. Way to not care about the ant people. Come on.
That ain't right. But that is
Discrimination right there.
That seems like a really dumb thing. I don't know.
yeah. I think it's just a thing that's just funny for the headline, and they're like, we can do it, right? I think they mentioned that it was just one of the people on the dev team was very scared of spiders, and so they basically made it for themselves, which is pretty funny. But that is that's generally the news for this week. Right? I do want to actually say one other thing about the DualSense. Excuse me. It has a built-in microphone, so now it'll be much easier for people to swear at you while you're playing online games. So great. But that, like I said, that's the news for this week. Of course, you know. We're in the time of the year where anyways news would be like, obviously with everything else going on. It's even more so. But you know what never leaves? You know what isn't seasonal? What isn't been affected by the coronavirus? That is the list!
The list!
Follow along in the pace bin below as every week we add more and more games to it's a lot. It's a lot of games on this list. Last week we added Sonic 2. Which was, where did Sonic 2 end up? 37 on the list,
yeah.
Right? Pretty good for all things considered for a list of 176 games. Noah brought it last week, right? This week, Saf, because you've been gone for the better part of 2 months, you are adding to the list.
Indeed. Has anyone played Yakuza? I know Will has.
I've
Zero.
Zero?
Zero specifically, no.
All right, how about Kiwami?
I have to later this year, but no, not yet.
What about Kiwami then? One?
No,
Good call.
I've not played a single Yakuza game.
me neither.
Alright,
I
Sorry.
really want to play all the games.
how about
Eventually
Super
I'll
Mario
sit
Maker
down.
1?
Yeah.
Were you that?
Super
What
Mario
game?
Maker. Super Mario Maker.
Super Mario Maker. Okay.
No.
All right.
I'm pretty sure Muzzy will be upset with it, but
Who
it's fine,
cares?
it's Muzzy.
That's life.
But
Mm.
who cares?
That's life.
Kidding, love you, Muzzy.
All right. Super Mario Maker.
Super Mario Maker, it came out for the Wii U,
Mm-hmm.
and people who own the Switch and don't own the Wii U, it's basically, well, you know what Super Mario Maker is. You just build your own Mario levels,
You too.
and you just upload it online, and people just play your own Mario Maker levels.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was it.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
I think it is. I think there are notable things about Mario Maker, right?
Uh-huh.
There are, yes.
I think one of the biggest compliments I can give the game of Mario Maker is that a lot of times I will be very interested in creator games, right? Just to see how many people they get to make stuff, right? Because it's always very hard to get someone to make things. And if you look at Mario Maker's sales versus Mario Maker's uploaded levels, on average, most players made 3 levels, which is actually way above the norm. No other game, most games are like at 0.3. Most people do not make levels in video games, which to me says Mario Maker has maybe the most intuitive level creator that's out there. It's just like understanding without having to need a bunch of instructions, right?
Yeah, you can make a lot of things with just the tools that they give you. Like, they give you just the right amount of tools, and you can make like puzzle levels, you can make speedrun levels, you can make music levels. It's like you can do a lot of stuff with it.
And it's relatively easy to do that too, right? Like you can turn them on
very
in an
user
hour.
friendly.
Yeah.
And they have from like 4 styles to pick from, like 4 2D Mario styles.
Yeah, you can do
Mario
like
Brothers,
old school Mario Bros,
3,
Mario Bros World, Mario Bros 3, and the new Super Mario Bros.
Super Mario Brothers. Yeah, so you could pick from those 3 visual designs, and I think there was a couple of differences in terms of
like
what
some themes had
get.
certain mechanics. Like the World had like the spin jump. The new Super Mario Bros had wall jumps. I don't know what 3 had, but yeah.
I don't know what 3 had.
3's
but I know
got nothing
one,
on World, so that's all I can
the original one, the Super Mario Brothers 1, you had the mystery mushroom, which you could just pick whatever fucking.
Oh yeah, the amiibo function, yeah.
And it was cool how people used those amiibo for like theming levels, right? Like that's the one thing that I do miss in Mario Maker 2, right? I think Mario Maker 2 is a better game than 1. But
it is a better game, but other than that, yeah.
That is the big thing I miss, right? And I do think Mario Maker is interesting. I wouldn't rank it much differently on the list, but it's like one of the 3 good applications of the Wii U gamepad, you know? Like, it was actually nice. It was nice to sort of be able to just very easily pop in and out of that tablet mode.
One of the only like Wii U games with a big thriving online community as well.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Even though like the search mechanic was kind of basic, people still found ways to share great levels. Yeah. A lot of shit ones, but a lot of great ones as well.
Yeah. I do feel like I feel like the play end of things for Mario Maker 1 was a little basic, right? In terms of playing online levels. And obviously there was not a lot of single player content for the game. So you were sort of relying on 100 Mario Maker, the 100 Mario Challenge to get anywhere, right? But even that was a little basic, so there was no great way to sort of sort by popularity or much, right? So that was more one of the more limiting factors, I would say, of the game. But
thinking about ranking this game is very difficult. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, Seth, you have to make the first poke at it.
Game.
I have to make the first poke at it because I'm the one who picked it, and I wanna put it at least on. Yeah, I would definitely put it above fucking Super Mario 3D Land and Super Mario Bros. 2.
Where's
Why
3D
are you starting
Land?
all the way down there?
Because I'm scrolling from bottom to up.
Okay,
so
where's 3D Land again?
3D Land's like in like the 90s, I think.
110.
Shouldn't be that low. I want to die.
No.
Bring it up.
Superman.
Around 70s.
Run Sonic Mania?
That's where I was looking.
Yeah, I was looking in the 40s.
I was actually looking right above Sonic Mania, but below Fire Emblem.
I would have put it below Sonic Mania, to be honest with you. Like, I preferred Sonic Mania. Like, that was a really, really good Sonic game. And a really good platformer.
Sure. I mean, it's hard, right?
Yeah, it's kind of... One's just a level creator, the other one's just a platformer.
But I mean, once again, if it was easy to make a level creator, more people would have it. It was a challenge that they were able to solve.
I guess.
Yeah, but I don't know if it should go that high. It's like besides like downloading and making levels, like other content, like the single player content was pretty mediocre.
It was.
Then.
Yeah. There was no single player content.
If we were talking the second one, I would put the second one even higher on the list just because of that. But
yeah, because the second one did introduce like the multiplayer. The first
game is like it's really fucking good. I mean,
it is really good. Yeah.
And I think it was very cool to have, because Mario obviously, part of the reason that Mario is so popular is because it controls so well, right?
Yeah.
And I think that foundation of Mario is what also separates it from a lot of other level creators of that are 2D platformers, right? Because there's a fair number of those. But I think it was also cool to have a Mario that had the capacity to be truly, really hard, right? Like some of those levels, and I'm not even saying like the idiot Kaizo levels, right? But like I really enjoyed going to like the expert level, right? The one that's just below the hardest one, and doing the 100 Mario challenges. Because that's the thing that you don't get in Mario games, right? That type of just like, oh no, like we're gonna ask a lot of you to beat the level, not just to like collect the star coins, right? And so I do think that makes it stand unique among even other Mario games that it clearly is just pulling sprites from, you know?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the thing, because like the one thing that you made the comment on like earlier is that a lot of people created a lot of great levels on this game, and it's one of the rate of people that create levels was pretty much the highest one. So it has taken advantage of that. And when you see like online streams of Super Mario Maker, you see like a lot of fucking crazy creative, challenging levels that get put on there. But even then, I don't think it's better than Sonic Mania. Like Sonic Mania it's a really, really good platformer. Like it's probably one of my favorite Sonic games, hands down.
I mean, without revealing where I would have put it over versus Sonic 2 last week, it's my favorite Sonic 2D platformer. But
another wrong opinion.
Well, I mean, it would have been 4 too, so it wouldn't have mattered.
I was thinking of, I mean, my original thought was in the same kind of area, but my first spot was below Okami.
Below Okami, so that'd be 50.
At number 50. I don't know if you guys would agree with that or not.
I agree with that more than...
I agree with Saf that it would be below Sonic Mania, but I also think that it should maybe go below some of these other games that are in the same spot.
Yeah.
Like Super Smash Bros. Melee, Psychonauts, Hotline Miami,
Borderlands.
all very good games. So, I don't know.
Rare instance where
I guess,
you would have
like,
really higher than me.
When you think about it, like the negative traits of this game, like it's like when it comes to like searching levels by itself, like you would have to rely on the internet to search that. There's no decent search system in the game itself that you can use.
There's a group of fans that are like, the Bookmart website was amazing. I'm not one of those people. I think having to go to another website's dumb.
Yeah, because other times, like you go to like the hot page, and then the levels were really mediocre, if not weird.
Yeah. I think I might. Well,
and there was quite an some of the genres of level. I guess the types of levels could get like tiring. Like when you have like the do not move auto scroller levels.
Yeah, those were...
auto levels are very bad.
The first couple you do, you're like, oh, okay, this is cool, but then you just see them everywhere, and it's just like,
this is neat. And then
that's where like the tagging system is much more useful.
But those are the levels that always got like the highest ratings.
Yes,
so I was like, I don't.
So
then you go to a low rating, and then the levels are crap. Well, I can't find a balance between them.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I would still like it probably above like Katamari, but I think 50 is also acceptable area for it.
I'm okay with Under Okami.
I mean, I've yet to beat Okami HD. I really, really enjoyed Okami HD so far. I still need to finish it, but I'll take Brandon and Noah's word for it and put it, and I guess Will's word for it and put it under Okami HD.
There we go. Number 50.
Super
Solid number.
Mario Maker.
Sorted.
Nice round number. That is at number 50, like you said, Super Mario Maker. Surrounding it, number 48, Borderlands. 49, Okami HD. 50, as I said, Super Mario Maker. 51, Tomb Raider 2013, and 52, Indivisible. That's the most recent game on there. That's on Game Pass, by the way. That is
not the most recent game on there.
Of those five. Sorry.
Star Control 2.
Oh, I meant like when it came out, right?
Yeah. Okay.
But that is you mentioned Star Control 2 and Indivisible. Both are Game Club games, which you can go back and listen to on this feed by subscribing on your podcast service of choice, by following us on Twitter. You can make sure to not miss episodes when they go live every Monday and every other Thursday when Game Club is activated. You can hear 30 to an hour and 30 minutes of discussion about all manner of games. What's the next one, Brandon?
It is Untitled Goose Game.
Hey.
So another recent game.
Yep.
That's one that oftentimes the ratio of how long it takes to beat the game versus how long the Game Club game is. That's when you can do in a breezy 2 or 3 hours, right?
It was very short. We're trying to stay topical.
But yeah, so
people are talking about this game. They like it. The internet is all talking about it.
A flutter.
Yeah.
That once again, you can look forward to that on Thursday. Besides all that, of course, you can also find us at twitch.tv/Up when we go live. Moose is supposed to still be streaming the Hell games. If that happens, who knows? Brandon, as he mentioned earlier, is paying out some E3 related bets to me by playing Yakuza 0.
Nice.
As part of our bet, I have to stream it.
I thought for a while. Yes, you guys stream. Yes, I'm not going to do a full playthrough, but at least parts of the game. I would ask.
Say the whole thing.
Or the whole thing. The whole thing.
I'm not afraid.
Besides all that, though, you also have a Facebook.com/Supercast and an Instagram.com/Supercast, and we have a YouTube channel where if you prefer to listen on YouTube, you can subscribe there and make sure that you'll see it when they get uploaded. That is the podcast for this week. I did not. I did the order slightly different. I didn't ask for a final phrase. Does anyone want a final phrase?
Yep.
Okay, Saf, you've been waiting six whole weeks for this. Your final phrase.
One of the greatest things to come out of Final Fantasy 7 Remake is fucking Rude's suit. Oh my god, it's amazing. I want that in my life. Give it to me.